Hello guys, I like cheese, and I like playing games. I am archiving myself playing these story-driven games as an additional motivation since I always skip and save them for other days, whatever reason I come up with just to not play them. Also because I've been a sucker for live service games for so long that I didn't have the time to play all these great games through the years.
After playing the first Final Fantasy, the obvious next step would be playing the next game, Final Fantasy II. I wasn't expecting that much difference since there's only a short time between the two games' releases. Boy, I was wrong. We'll get to it later. I was also planning on doing mostly the same thing as what I did in FF1, like having boost on experience and gills while not having random encounters on, until I discovered about the so-called leveling or grinding system in this game. I think I am severely over-leveled by the time of the story ending due to how this system works. So with that out of the way, let's get on with it. First things first, music is still a vibe. I think that's the only thing that stayed the same as the first game, along with the art style. Aside from that, everything else felt different. I feel like they tried a lot of experimental ideas in this game as opposed to the traditional, quote, vanilla feel of the first game. The story started a bit darker, way different than the usual fantasy trope about demon lords and heroes and stuff. You got to name 4 characters and get dropped immediately on an unwinnable battle, and then you lose your 4th member? I thought you'll rescue your 4th member early in the game, but got disappointed when they give you different NPCs as your 4th party member. They go away after some time, so you kinda don't want to waste your effort grinding and making them stronger. I engraved into my mind that I'm basically playing as a 3-man party with just an extra enemy bonus target. You then wake up on the Rebel area and get introduced to another new experimental system they tried, the password system. I don't like this system. It felt like an unnecessary obstacle. They could have just went with dialogue options and remove undiscovered words and key terms. Heck, have a bunch of question mark as a choice if it's still an undiscovered term or something. No need to ask and learn about everything since it only felt bothersome for me. It feels like they wanted you to investigate, but since the ask/learn prompt only appears on key NPCs, it's totally nonsensical and bothersome for me altogether. After a few conversations and progression, you get to go outside the world map and get introduced, yet again, to probably another experimental thing they want to try. I don't know what they're called exactly, but I'm just going to call it leveling system. The wizards at the beginning only explain the basics of the basics. It essentially is like this. The more you use something, the better it becomes. I don't know the numbers, and I'm not going to bother researching for how the levels and numbers go up for this game. In a vacuum, I think the weapon leveling up for proficiency is a great addition if they kept it along with the usual player leveling system. It would avoid players to just switch weapon types to whatever is more powerful and gives bonus to characters that stick to 1 or 2 weapon types. The stats increasing along with it is just convoluted since the characters themselves seem to have different growth scaling. The magic/spells also sharing the same gimmick and system is kind of bad in my opinion since you get to discover and acquire new offensive spells much later in the game. You can't make use of it unless you grind them for a very long time. For example, the fire spell you get early can go high since you have a lot of time to use it, and the flare spell you'll get much later, along with the supposed strongest spell, Ultima, wouldn't be as strong as that fire spell unless you repeatedly use these new spells repeatedly, hitting like wet noodle for a very long time, and the character casting it essentially being a useless character for a while. The world map feels very different compared to FF1. There's no hard locks and obstacles that lets you roam around, aside from the obviously strong monster encounters that you cannot dream of defeating early. There's a lot of backtracking involved, moving back and forth towards towns and cities, and a needlessly large amount of space for almost everything, even for some areas that you would only go one time. Imagine all that space for the snowcraft or the area where you get the flame torch. It all becomes useless space after the story goes past that area. The whole world also being a mostly one huge chunk of land makes traveling from one coast to the other completely tedious since you have to go around the world, making you go through that huge ocean area for random encounters. They made the whole world so big, probably to push you to grind and have a lot of random encounters since the leveling system is stuck to you repeating stuff over and over again. Another thing that was vexing for me was the amount of trap rooms on the dungeons. And here I thought the monster encounter on chests in FF1 is over the top. There's way too much dead-end rooms that just adds to the unnatural obstacle to progressions, blocking you with a bunch of monster fights all the time. If it wasn't for the pixel remasters having the option to turn off encounters, this would have been so frustrating to play. Oh, also one more thing about the spells. It's only about the 4th hour or so that I discovered I can press a button to switch from single target to the whole party. I thought I would be able to buy a different spell for AoE counterparts of these spells and buffs, so I didn't get to level them up that much. While progressing, I think I've only encountered one bug that needed to restart/reboot the game. On the Cyclone part where you were supposed to get carried by the wyvern inside. And other than that, everything went smoothly as far as gameplay and progression goes. One thing to mention about the latter part of the game. The temporary NPC party members dying while sacrificing themselves didn't stick to me. I think the purpose was to deepening the story to the darker side, but after I discovered that you can basically ignore the 4th member, I really didn't care all that much for them even after them dying. I don't know if there were options or routes that might make them possibly survive, like, say, grinding and leveling up strength to a certain number makes Joseph or whoever that guy is survive the boulder. But, meh, I just don't really care that much, honestly. I also hate how they put the useful spell vendor just before the last dungeon. What am I supposed to do? Go back to grinding to level up haste and waste a lot of time? It's the last dungeon, for the love of God. Also, having the boss gauntlet locked into the treasure chests instead of blocking progression or floors like what they did in FF1 feels really weird to me. Did they have other plans for it? Or do they just want players to have the options of skipping the random boss fights and be able to just go straight to the final boss? Either way, I think due to how the leveling system works, I didn't get to pace my characters to have the appropriate strength to make the fight somewhat rewarding, like what I did in FF1. All in all, I think I still somewhat enjoyed the game. It's very different, but the same, if you get what I mean. They tried a lot of stuff, experimented with mechanics and system, and probably discovered and improved upon and then implemented on the later games. I probably won't be playing this game again, unless for achievement and such. Comparing this to the previous game altogether, I will put this way below FF1. I'm hoping FF3 goes back to the usual leveling system. Speaking of FF3, there's the Pixel Remaster, which is based on the original, and there's a 3D remake. I don't know if I should play one or another, or probably even both, before doing my summary and thoughts. It will probably depend on whether I have that much free time or not, but I hope I enjoy it more than this game.